What's up, everybody, and welcome into the Liquid Trucking Podcast, episode 94. I am your host, Marcus, and thanks for being here today. Episode 94, that means we are creeping on 100. And we told you guys, going back when we celebrated, I think it was like episode 50 or maybe 52, when we kind of celebrated our first year here on the Liquid Trucking Podcast. We told you guys we were going to blow it out for the 100th episode, and we are planning that. We are going to have a contest of sorts that you guys and your families can get in on. And what's cool about it, I was looking forward in my schedule here, and on my calendar, what I'm seeing is that the 100th episode of the Liquid Trucking Podcast will air on the 28th of October. That's worth a party horn. That's worth a party horn. You want to know why? It's because it's Halloween. It's actually worth a scream. It's going to be terrifying. We're going to have so much damn fun on the Liquid Trucking Podcast for our 100th episode, so be sure to stay tuned for that. I will be updating you guys as we lead into that with how you can take part in the fun little contest that we're going to have going on. And, of course, our winners are going to be featured on the website, podcast.liquidtrucking.com. A few other things that are coming up on the horizon here before we get into what we're actually talking about today. Next week on the show, we plan to have a little check-in with the fellows out at Bartow. I'm hoping to get Chris Baltushis and Corey Lyles on. They've been doing a lot of work out there at the transload facility, and definitely want to get them on and showcase a little bit of that. You know, we talked to a lot of drivers and a lot of staff members from the Plattsmouth terminal, but we don't get to check in with Bartow very often, so I'm really excited to do that. Chris and Corey are always great when we have them on the show, and honestly, it's been a while since we've had them on, so I'd like to get back in touch with those guys. That's going to be next week. The following week, which would be October 1st, is going to be a really cool episode and one that I'm very excited about. It's our hunting episode. We did one last year all about what tags you drew, where you're hunting, what you're hunting with, what you're hunting for, who you're hunting with. We'll talk about the lunchbox this year. That's something that's always very well paid attention to in my hunting parties, is the snacks. And on top of all of that, I want to open up a taxidermy gallery on the website. So if you guys have any taxidermy that you're very proud of, or maybe it's just got a story behind it, send it in. Every animal that I've had mounted on the wall has a story that came with it, whether it's just the hunting story about how we tracked it, how we were able to get within range, and how we were able to make the shot, or all of the follies and circus events that happen leading up to it, because everybody that's an avid hunter knows it never goes the way you plan. In fact, if you want to promise yourself one way it won't go, make a plan, and then you'll know that that stuff's not going to happen. So I want to hear the stories. I want to see the pictures of all your taxidermy, and we're going to get a bunch of you hunters from Liquid Trucking on and talk about your planned hunts for the year, and just everything surrounding hunting. So that one will launch October 1st. And then as we work our way through October, we're going to have some other cool episodes for you. There will be a Jamboree recap episode because I just found out as we lead up and plan for this Jamboree, which you guys are looking forward to here in, 10 days? We are going to, as far as I know, be able to record everything that happens into a microphone during the Jamboree. So if I'm talking to you guys live, if you just walk up to me in the middle and we have a conversation for everybody to hear over the loudspeaker, you know, sort of a mini podcast interview with you, we'll have that stuff recorded. So not to be intimidating, don't want you guys to think I'm not forcing it down anybody's throat, but I will be out at the Jamboree. I want to meet all of you guys. I want to be able to put a face to the name for those of you I haven't been fortunate enough to do that with. A lot of you guys have given me a lot of your time here on the podcast, and I really would like to just shake your hand in person and tell you thank you when I look you in the eye. So looking forward to the Jamboree. Again, that's going down on the 27th of September out at the Plattsmouth terminal. Be there. And there's some, I believe you guys were texted some links a few weeks back about getting, signed up for various things there. So make sure you follow those links and make sure you get signed up for anything that you want to get signed up for. Make sure that you're out there with us having fun, enjoying some of the great food that Mr. Matt Cleach is going to be putting on the grill. I know I will be. I'm not going to eat for like 3 days in the lead up to that one. So lots going on here around the Liquid Trucking Podcast and within the Liquid Trucking Podcast. And we're very lucky to be hooked up with a company like Liquid, because without you guys, we wouldn't get great interviews like the one that we've got in store for you today. We've been real lucky here on the podcast lately. We've had a couple of real, I would say some of the top women in the trucking industry on the show last week and this week. Of course, last week we welcomed 10 Street's Christy Choice on to talk a bit about her journey through the industry and why she loves it so much. And this week, it's much the same. We are going to talk to Amanda Schuier from Jetco, and she is very intimately involved in the trucking space. I mean, every single corner that you can imagine, Amanda has been hands-on in that corner, and she's just a wealth of knowledge. She's got a lot of really cool ideas about the industry. And in general, just somebody that you could sit down with a cup of coffee or a beer or a glass of wine and talk to for hours. So I think you guys are really going to enjoy this interview coming up with Amanda. And yeah, I mean, it's just, like I said, we've been lucky. Thank you. I want to send a thank you special. A thank you special. Now, I want to send a special thank you to Jason Eisenman, because he's been hooking up these interviews. He sets me up with these people. He sends an intro email. And without him putting these people on my desk, I would never get these interviews. So big ups to Jason and the rest of the staff there at Liquid for always helping out with suggestions. Big ups to you drivers. I had a couple driver submitted topics come in this week. We are busy. As you said, I just laid it out for you that we're scheduled almost through the end of October right now on the podcast, but that doesn't mean that we won't come to a time where there's like 6 or 8 weeks in a row where we're really starving for content. So make sure to submit your content suggestions to me via text or give me a call. You can email me, podcast@liquidtrucking.com. Or if you're having trouble getting in touch, let your dispatcher know. They'll put you in touch with me, or they'll get in touch with me and just feed me the suggestion with your name on it. Again, we're rewarding Drive for Gold points if we use your suggestion, so we're always happy to get them, and every one of them gets added to the stack. And we will work our way through them as quickly as we possibly can. That's my promise to you guys. Go check out podcast.liquidtrucking.com for everything Liquid Trucking Podcast, including all of our episodes, information about who is on the episodes and what we're talking about, as well as some fun photo galleries that we put up from time to time, like that one that I'm really looking forward to that we're planning for the beginning of October, the Taxidermy Showcase. All right. Enough gabbing from me. It's time for us to get to the reason we're all here today, and that is my conversation with Amanda Schuier, which happens right now.
Welcome to the gold standard of podcasts for the gold standard of drivers. This is the Liquid Trucking Podcast with your host, Marcus Bridges.
Welcome back into the Liquid Trucking Podcast. Every now and then here on the Liquid Trucking Podcast, we are bestowed the opportunity to interview someone that is way above our station. Let's just put it that way. And today is one of those days. Very excited to have our next interviewee here on the podcast. She was elected top woman to watch in transportation in 2020 by Women in Trucking. She was also awarded the TMC Silver Sparkplug Award in 2022, which is ATA's Technology and Maintenance Council's highest honor for professional excellence in commercial vehicle maintenance. She is currently the Strategic Maintenance Director for Jetco Delivery. Please welcome to the show, Amanda Schuier. Amanda, thank you so much for being here with us today. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for inviting me. I have to apologize up front for my less than professional attire, but we're recording this right after Travis and Taylor got engaged. And so I had to rep my New Heights shirt.
I see that. The New Heights podcast shirt.
I know it's terrible. I'm so sorry, but
No, it's okay. We love the podcast world here on the Liquid Trucking
exactly.
Podcast,
Yes.
and I feel like we have to pay respect where it's due. I'm not a
Exactly.
Taylor Swift fan, but I love the NFL, so I can get in on this
Perfect.
conversation.
Perfect. I can do football or I can do Taylor. So whatever you want to talk about, that's
That's
fine.
great. That's great. Well, let me ask you this. Obviously, just wrapped up that Eras tour a while back. Were you fortunate enough to get a ticket and go see her on that one?
There's like a long story, but I'll make it short. But the short story is my daughter is still mad at me because I I had tickets in Houston, Texas, which is where my work is, and I sold them. And my daughter still hates me, but I made up for it and I actually surprised her and we went to Toronto last November for a mother-daughter trip. And so we got to see her in Toronto November last year and it was amazing. So,
That's great.
yes,
That's great. Well, as I said, without being a fan, what I can tell you is no person that I've ever talked to that's gone to see one of her shows comes away disappointed. So I
100%.
got to say, she's doing a good job. I'll give her that
Yes.
for sure.
It is a show for sure. It is absolutely like entertainment, just like the NFL, right? Is entertainment. Like it is absolutely entertainment for sure.
Yeah. Well, when you're moving that kind of money around, I certainly hope you're spending it on keeping us entertained. That's all I
Amen.
can say.
That's true.
Well, it makes kind of for a cool segue into our conversation today because, there was that story about Taylor Swift really just personally taking care of the truck drivers that were on her staff, giving
Yes.
them, I think she gave them each 100 grand or something like that.
Yeah, it was a
Um,
lot. It was a nice chunk of change. Yeah. Yeah.
I know that you care about truckers just like we do and just like Taylor Swift does to an extent. So let's talk about your career and just all of the accomplishments that you've amassed in trucking. I was telling you before we came on here, I have a list as long as my arm here of things that you've been involved in and accomplished in your career, but I want to hear it from you.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I can't even like I don't know if I deserve all the accolades. I'm just me. So I think a lot of people don't know that I'm actually fourth generation trucking. And so I was born into this, although when I was growing up, like it wasn't my aspiration to go into the trucking industry, which I think we got to change, right? We got to get more people involved and interested in the industry. But yeah, my great grandfather owned a trucking company. My grandfather owned a Mac dealership, and then my uncle and dad both worked around the Mac dealership. And then my dad was like, "Oh, I want to go be a dentist. Like, forget trucking." And then I actually was fired from a job and looking for a job, and I kind of fell into trucking because I needed a job. But actually, like the second I got into it, I realized just how much I loved the people more than anything else. And, the joke at the time is that I was working for a Kenworth dealership and I worked in what we called the Ivory Tower, right? Or corporate. And I was always making these excuses to like go downstairs to where the dealership was. And it was where all the drivers were. It was where, the parts room was. It was like where all the action was. And I just quickly realized that no day was ever the same. And it was the people that were kind of making it the difference for me, right? So once I got my start, I was pretty much hooked, quite honestly, from that day forward. And so I did a couple different like parts and marketing roles with different dealership groups. And then I sold aftermarket parts for like 4 years, traveled like 40 weeks a year,
Oh,
super,
wow.
super crazy. Yeah, it was actually a really good gig. Like I met a lot of people, had a great career in sales. It was a lot of fun. And then, had a family and kind of settled down. And then at that point is when I switched to the carrier side. And that's when I started working in driver recruiting. And then really kind of developed my passion, I would say, for what, I call now is like the engagement, retention, coaching side of things. Although right now I'm running the shop. So, jack of all trades, but, Yeah, so I've really been on the fleet side of things, I guess you could say, for the last 10 years. And, if I could like summarize what's kept me in it, it really has been the people. And I think just, meeting people and sharing common goals and interacting with drivers and, my technicians and our office staff, absolutely. Like I would not have been as successful as I have been if it hadn't been for the people, for sure.
Sure. I can totally echo that sentiment as somebody who sort of fell into a role that is surrounded by the trucking industry as well. I never would have guessed that I would have met so many people that just,
Yeah.
if I ever have to leave this gig, those are the people I'm going to call that day. And it's going to be a full work day of calling people and telling them
Yeah.
I'm sorry because it just met so many. And there was something else that you said there that I wanted to touch on. We've talked to so many truck drivers in this group, so many people involved in the trucking industry in one way, shape, or form or another. And as far back down the family tree as I have heard is third generation. So you've officially set a record here on the Liquid Trucking Podcast today
Woo!
as
Just like
our
Taylor on her podcast.
there you
Oh,
go. You are
Lord.
a generational talent here. It's in your
Yes.
bloodlines, and
Yeah.
no wonder you fall in love with the people. I'm sure they remind you a lot of the family and friends that you had when you were coming up in the industry as a young person, and just sort of learning about what your dad and your uncle and your grandfather and your great grandfather did. That's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have a picture like somewhere. I don't know if I have it handy, but like of me sitting on a Mack truck, right, at 18 months old. And so to your point, like it's literally, I mean, I literally have my Mack Bulldog like
Oh
dressed
yeah, look
up,
at that.
of course.
For those of
Because
you
you
not
can,
watching, it is a pink Mac Bulldog. It's actually chrome, but it's got a pink like sweater on. Yeah,
yeah, you can buy outfits for the Mack Bulldog
that's
on
so
their
cool.
on their website. But yeah, no, it's I mean it's literally in my blood. But again, like to your point, I didn't necessarily like grow up and go to school being like, oh, I want to work in trucking. But once I got into it, it was like, oh, I'm never gonna leave. Like I don't ever want to leave because of the people and just because of I think quite honestly like the right now the challenge right and the fun and some of that stuff but yeah fourth gen I am so
That's so
pretty
cool.
cool yeah.
That's so cool. And I also wanted to ask, did you gain a little respect from the drivers that you worked around after you let them know that you used to travel 40 weeks a year? That's what, I've got a guy that I worked with that was on the road about 40 weeks a year, the CEO of the company I work for. And when drivers hear that and then hear that, oh, he's doing that in his own personal vehicle, all of a sudden they warm up a little bit and they think, yeah, tell me some of the stuff you've seen out there. Did you find that at all after you tell them that you spent 40 weeks a year on the road for a while?
I think so. I think as like I'm trying to think about how I want to word this, but I think like as a female being a traveling salesman in trucking was a real tough thing. And to your point, like, being gone 40 weeks out of the year, having to like I'm trying to think how I want to word this, but I almost felt like I had to be more credible about my product and about my knowledge, right? Because I think there's this perception maybe that I could sell things just because I'm a girl, right? Or, something like that. And so I feel like I worked as hard, if not harder, than some of my male counterparts. And so I think to that point, I think that I was able to gain credibility, like because I've, been there, done that, I guess you could say. Like another story I tell in that regard is at the last fleet that I was at, we were looking at, and I know this is a hot button issue, but we were looking at dual facing cameras, right, for our trucks. And I said, you know what? I'll put the damn thing in my minivan. And I did. And I was like, okay, I will put it in my minivan. So I drove my kids to school every single day with the camera in my minivan. And the reason I did that, again, was that credibility issue, but also because I wanted to know what the drivers would be experiencing. And I didn't want to be able to say, I didn't want to be able to answer their questions falsely or incorrectly or just feed them a line of crap, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, well, I got to experience it firsthand. And so I think that in general, like that's kind of how I've tried to live my career in trucking. And I think that's probably why I've had a lot of different roles. I like to try a lot of different new things. And like, I think that's what's kept it fun for me. Next year is 20 years. So I
Wow,
don't know, like
congratulations.
that makes me feel old, but I don't know. Yeah. I just have such a like curiosity and zest, I think, for the industry in general. So
You
yeah.
can tell, you really can, and I'm glad that you make those moves, like putting the camera in your minivan. Because one thing I've learned on this podcast is drivers smell BS before it
100%.
even rounds the corner. They're like my dogs; they don't need to see mom come around the corner to know that mom's around the corner,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's amazing. But I think that that is also one of the coolest aspects of the driver community is that they are
I
so
agree.
genuine
Yep.
and so real,
Yes.
because this job requires it, right? I mean, if
Yes.
they're tuned out for even a couple of seconds, so many terrible things can go wrong.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
it's so cool to hear somebody else that isn't a driver that deals with drivers often, because I can relate to it a lot. And there's something else in there that when we were talking through there, you were talking about being a female in the industry and having that sort of, I don't want to call it a stigma necessarily, but maybe you can speak to that better than I can, especially because of your work with women in trucking and that whole thing. Can you talk to me a little bit about your goals for the industry, if you have any, in trying to advance women in trucking? It's a really wide breaching or wide ranging topic here. So I'm sorry for it kind of being just a vague question, but I really just want to get into your work with women in trucking. Of course, you won the award that we talked about. You were actually, sorry, designated as one of the women to watch in trucking in
Yes.
2020. So what was behind that, and what type of work have you done in the industry to try to advance women in general?
Oh man, yeah, that's a loaded question. It's interesting. Like I like to hang out on podcasts and webinars and conferences and stuff. And like one question I try to stay away from is talking about females in the industry, just because I think of like everything that I've accomplished in the industry, right? And I'm like, okay, did this happen because I'm a girl? Or did this happen because of like me putting in the time and the effort and the work and like just doing the damn thing, right? And
Hmm.
so like it's such a loaded question, because on one hand, I'm absolutely in support of empowering women in the industry, and I am. There's no question in my mind. I would love to see more females in the industry. Like one of the things that I was talking about at the Florida Trucking Association recently is like, how many female maintenance managers do you know? There's like two of me,
Yeah.
maybe.
Right. I
Like
was gonna say
it
I
is
know.
not
Yeah, I
like
know one, but
I know. It's like, I mean, so I mean, you think about like a female at a trucking company, and this is no shade to them, but like you think dispatcher, you think HR, you think safety, which we need those roles, but like where are the females in maintenance, right? But we think about, the fact that female truck drivers can literally get equal pay to male truck drivers for the same job, which is fantastic. There's a lot of places where you can get that equal pay. So like I'm absolutely passionate about that. I think it's a tough industry to get into. I've seen a lot of change since I started. I think in general, I feel like trucking is more diverse and more welcoming and in general than when I started 20 years ago. But I think that in general is just, we collectively, the industry just needs to be more welcoming to people and really just bring more people in. I don't, whether it's, younger people, women, whatever, I think we just need to get people interested in the industry. So I don't know. I didn't really answer your question.
no, I think that's a great answer, because you answered it by saying this is the way that I approach it, and I think that
Yeah.
there's a lot of value in that, because that's it. A lot of times what I've seen on this podcast is that if we are going to talk about a topic or a segment that has to do with women in trucking, it almost sometimes feels like it's a little bit shoehorned, because it's like we're talking about it. Are we talking about it because we want to or because we feel like we have to?
Yeah.
And the answer is always we want to. I don't do anything on this podcast that I don't want to. I'm fortunate that they give me those reins. But I do definitely get your point, is that there's probably a lot of instances throughout the industry where you can point at and say, that's because you felt like you had to, not because you wanted to, type thing. And that I feel like changing that is in these conversations. That's the way that we advance that I guess that strategy, if you will, of just being more welcoming. And I don't know if you saw this growing up you grew up in trucking. It's probably something that you drew a bead on at one point in time. I grew up around a lot of farmers and ranchers in a very rural community. And if you lived in that community and you wanted a job, they'd put you to work. You could go out and buck hay bales, you could change pipe, you could wrangle cattle. But if you moved in from outside of that community and you started knocking on doors at ranches, it was going to take you a while to find a job because you're an outsider. Yep. And I feel like that's kind of similar to what you're talking about in the trucking industry. It's a bit of I hate to use the term a good old boy industry, but there's definitely years in the past where you could say this is a good old boy industry. If you're not one of the good old boys, you're not in it.
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, I've had firsthand experience with that. I think like if you look at my chairmanship year with TMC, right, and the Technology and Maintenance Council. So that organization, I was the 65th general chairman and treasurer, and I was female number 2.
Wow.
And so the last female was chair 36 years ago. And I can't let another 36 years go by before we have another one, right? And so, I think like to that point too, like I guess the one thing that like I was thinking about while you were saying that is, I think to me too, one of the things that's critical is the concept of mentorships, and how I have never been one to turn somebody down in general if they approach me to have a conversation. And so in fact, when I was going to the Women in Trucking meeting a couple years ago, I'll never forget this young lady named Carrie. She sent me an email out of nowhere. I have no idea. I never met her, didn't know who she was. She said literally, like I can remember it bright as day. She said, "Congratulations on your nomination for this award. I would love to buy you a cup of coffee and hear all about your success." I'm like, holy crap. First of all, this girl has balls of steel, and she complimented me, and she's going to buy me a Starbucks. Like, this is literally the perfect example. But of course I said yes. And you know what? She and I sat down. We keep in touch to this day. That was 4.5 years ago. And literally she just let me talk about myself, which everybody loves to talk about themselves, but we've kept in touch. She's had a couple career changes, and I've been able to chat with her, and I've used her as well, like for what I've been doing. And I just think that mentorships can be so critical to someone's success. And I think that maybe like where I'm going with this long-winded thing is that maybe sometimes like our technicians and our driver base and even some office people don't even maybe have that concept of like saying like, hey, let me call somebody and ask them, or like, let me lean on them for some advice. And like that could be a life-changing or life-coaching situation. And it's been so impactful for me. And so that's like another way that I think maybe as a female, maybe I'm being a lot more fluffy right now, but maybe that's like been a really probably transformative part of my career, if that makes sense.
It really does. And
Yeah.
I'm 100% with you on the mentorship thing. I think that all of us in our chosen careers can look back and pinpoint one person, even if it was only one conversation, that really changed things in whether it be our perception, maybe it changed things in just the common sense of being an adult and in the industry that you're in. But there's no less than 3 or 4 people that when stuff gets hard, I call on a professional level to help me. Just help me. Just tell me right now if what is in my mind is a self-implosion type thing or it's the right idea, and I think fostering that type of environment is another great way. Having the conversations, fostering environment of mentorship, and it's weird, Amanda, as our world has shrunk and we've become more connected via our phones and all of our devices. I also feel like we've become more isolated. It used to be nothing for me to pick up the phone and call somebody when I wanted to talk to them. That was easy as pie. It was on my speed dial even.
Yep.
I couldn't even tell you where speed dial is on my phone right now.
I don't either, actually, now that you mention it. Like, I don't.
Because nobody wants to be called. Everybody says text me. And so
yep.
we're more isolated because those conversations like you're talking about over a cup of coffee when you have a long form conversation that doesn't have any instances where it's directed or it's rehearsed or anything. Yep. That's really where we learn about one another. And that's kind of why I was excited about having this conversation with you today, because this is what Jason at Liquid told me. He said, you're going to get Amanda talking and you guys, between the two of you, are going to just have a great conversation. So just go for it. And so far, this has been great. I love hearing about all your ideas, just the goals, all of the success that you've had. Is just... It's mind-blowing. Like I said, sometimes I don't feel like we deserve to be interviewing the people that we are. So I want to make sure that we hit all the high points here, though, because you did mention being on the technology, or excuse me, is it Technology and Maintenance Council? Yes.
TMC for short.
TMC.
Yep, you got it.
That's involved with the American Trucking Associations, correct?
Yes, indeed.
So tell me what that position entailed. Pretty big deal being only the second woman in you said 64-year history of the
I was
position?
65, yeah. 65. And now we're on 66. So yeah, it was an honor. Yeah. I mean, so ATA, for those of you who are familiar or not, has a bunch of like sub councils, right? So they have a safety council, they have their technology and maintenance council, they have a movers and storage council, they have all these sub councils. And so most of those sub councils have meetings and officers and whatever. And so for a couple years, I had been kind of rising through the ranks and finally got elected to the board, and then kind of served in several officer roles, and then finally was elected vice chair, and then chairman just this last year. So I served March of 24 until March of 25. And my theme of the year actually was engagement, which was really my first position when I started at Jetco, which is where I am now 3.5 years ago. They hired me as their director of employee engagement, which we can talk about what that means. But basically with TMC, I had seen kind of a lot of our members kind of participation was lagging a little bit, and just kind of wanted to get everybody kind of re-enthused for the work that we do. And TMC is responsible for basically a huge library of recommended practices in the maintenance and engineering space. So, and everything from engine stuff to brakes to tires and wheels, there's literally like a recommended practice, the best way to, do a wheel seal, like all of that stuff, which has been written by original equipment manufacturers, by technicians, by shop managers, and then it's all in this now digital book, but it literally used to be this giant thick book, right, that I would have on my desk that you can, look for when you're trying to figure something out. So like one I used this year was called the technician staffing ratio, which basically I figured out, okay, how many pieces of equipment do I have? And, what's my PM schedule? And basically it calculated for me, okay, how many technicians should I have in a properly staffed shop, right? So
that's cool.
Stuff like that. But yeah, so I finished in March of this year. I have 1 year as the has-been. So I'm the immediate past chair right now. So I have 1 year on the board still as a has-been. And then in March of 26, I guess I will be relieved of my duties. And I don't know what's next after that from that standpoint. But yeah, it was an honor. And the year went by so quickly. But I was able to do, I had a every other month Teams meeting that I called Chats with the Chairman, where I would just sit down with our members and let them ask me questions. I don't think we've ever done anything like that before. You know, it was my goal to really be accessible to the members, and I think I achieved that. So it was a good year. It was a fun year.
Talk to me about the employee engagement position. That seems interesting to me, and I
Yeah.
know that you're kind of in a different role now. But what did that entail, and how did you enjoy that part of working for Jetco?
Yeah, Jetco, you know, we're in Houston, Texas. We have about 150 drivers. And I think really just, you know, hats off to our leadership, my boss. We'd never had a director of employee engagement before. They'd never had anybody like this. But I was just at a point in my career where I needed something new. And I had kind of connected up with Jetco. And so we had this like pie in the sky idea, and it really was for the drivers, but also for our office staff and for our technicians, and really for all employees. So the goal was just another person that could be around to listen, to bounce ideas off of, to brainstorm, to help solve problems, to send birthday cards to, you know, touchy feely things, retention-y things. You know, if you couldn't get an answer from payroll, you could call Amanda, right? So it was a lot of that. And then I think just because of the way my career rolled, a lot of Jetco's senior managers had all been at Jetco, where I was like the new face. I was the infiltrator. But a lot of them started asking me questions. And so I think there was a lot of like peer coaching that I wasn't anticipating, which wasn't bad. I think that I was just surprised that the role took on a lot more kind of peer to peer mentoring and coaching, which was fun. So I did that about a year and a half, almost 2 years. And then we had some turnover in our shop in kind of that director level. And my boss said, Amanda, engagement is a luxury, but maintenance is a necessity. And so that's how I got the shop. And really the timing was right. Like with me taking over my chairmanship year with TMC, it made sense. Like I could literally go to my, you know, constituents, if you will, and say like, I'm literally running a shop now. And so I could kind of, you know, talk the talk and walk the walk. But yeah, it's been fun. I have learned a hell of a lot running the shop. And quite honestly, like that was probably one gap in my resume in terms of at a trucking company that I hadn't done. I had done HR, I had done payroll, I've done dispatch, I've done sales. Like I've pretty much done it all. Maybe not safety to the extent, but anyway, I've done most of the things, right? And so now that I have the chance to actually like run the shop, it's been really, really rewarding, but also really frustrating. It's hard to be a maintenance manager. So
I don't doubt it at all. And I've always said on this show that really the offensive linemen, the unsung heroes of our industry are the maintenance guys, the tech guys, the mechanics that can turn around work on these gigantic, very intricately put together rigs in the snap of a finger and have our drivers back out on the road safely and reliably. It's just amazing. And we want to have more technicians and guys from the shop on this show, but the
yeah,
reality of it is that they are so busy because
I
they're
know.
so good at their jobs.
I
We
know.
can't pull them away from it. And
I
so
know.
I
Yep.
never miss an opportunity to tip my cap to the maintenance workers across the entire industry. You're
Amen.
out there doing the Lord's work, as we like to
Yes.
say here on this show. And
Amen. The
I think
drivers
that
wouldn't be driving and the trucks wouldn't be moving if we didn't have those guys and gals. So, yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
And how
Yeah.
cool is it that I really feel like just kind of looking at it logically that drive or the employee engagement role made you so in tune with the guys that are out there in the weeds that you probably had a good understanding of a lot of the issues that they face and the problems that they have before you even took over the shop. So maybe started with a little tiny bit of a leg up Of course, there's all that other stuff that you
Yeah,
had to
I
learn, which I'm
definitely
sure
had
was
some
tough.
insight what I was stepping into, but yeah, it's, I mean, I've seen it everywhere too, and this is, not specific to Jetco, but, I think the old shop versus operations, challenge is like in every trucking company, right? And so because I've been on the operations side and knowing that when loads are hot and when customers are demanding, that uptime, like I know that side of it too. But on the flip side of that, like I don't ever want to sacrifice, a maintenance repair, and I don't want to put a non-fixed truck back on the road, and I don't want somebody to get hurt because of a repair that we did improperly. So like learning how to balance that all has been very interesting. Very, very interesting. How's that for PC?
That's
It's
great.
been good. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Well, before we let you go here, talk to me about if there's anything on the horizon for you, something that you're maybe looking forward to, goals for the future. You're the past chair at this point of the TMC, so I'm hoping that the workload maybe dwindles a little bit for you as the new chair has to take on some of those responsibilities. But what's the future hold for Amanda?
I don't know. I don't know. I got to find something. I'm sure I will. No, right now, with the shop team at Jetco, I'm continuing to work on big picture projects. So I'm spending a lot of time in that fun area of cost containment right now,
Ooh.
which is really great for somebody who doesn't like math. But I'm trying. I've spent a lot of time on our tire program. I have learned more about tires in the last 18 months than I ever wanted to know. But I did get an opportunity to go out to our tire manufacturer, their test track and stuff this summer. That was that was cool. That
I
was that was
bet.
pretty slick, not gonna lie.
I bet.
It was a good time. So no, I mean I am a lover of the industry, and like I will continue to talk benefits about this industry as much as I can to anyone who will listen. Here in Kansas City, I work with a couple high schools. I go up to the high schools and talk to them about careers in trucking. And there's one class that I have that I present them a problem, which is how do we make trucking more interesting to kids, in high school as they graduate, and then they present to me and I get to judge their projects, which is like I'm like savage when I when I judge, but it's really fun. And then it gives them an idea of like, oh, I've never thought about a career in trucking before. And so, I think more of that stuff for me is on the horizon for sure.
That's so cool. And
Yeah,
what better way than to be right in the classroom with them and giving them a project that they can apply the things that they like to. One thing I
exactly.
notice about drivers, there's a lot of them out there that are like hardcore gamers and content creators
Yeah.
and people that
Yeah.
are basically living this like internet star lifestyle, but they're doing it from the cab of their truck, which means they have a very steady income that
Yep.
pays them well, and they get to do the stuff that everybody would like to get paid for. Man, I know quite a few 17, 18-year-olds that if you dangled that carrot in front of them, they'd think, wait, so nobody's going to tell me I can't play video games when I shut
Right?
down. It's like, well,
Yep.
maybe your body will, but nobody nobody else. So
That's
I think
true.
that's so cool. We need a younger crop of drivers in all the
Yes.
time. I think that's always true for the industry. And um, I hate to see the trades in general sort of
Agreed.
fall away from high school. I don't
Yeah.
even know if my high school has a shop program anymore. And I didn't end up working in the trades, but I learned to weld. I learned a bunch of woodworking. I learned all
Yep.
sorts of stuff in shop class. And
Yep.
kids just don't get the opportunity as much anymore, and it's heartbreaking. But
I
people
agree.
like yourself out there advocating for our industry is what we really need. So it's just been a pleasure to have you on here today, Amanda, and hear about all of the amazing things that you're doing. One thing I like to do on this show for everybody that comes on is give them the floor for final thoughts at the end of the interview. This could
Oh
be
man.
anything that we didn't touch on. This could be a shout out to family members. This could be just, hey, thanks, it's been fun. It's totally up to you, and the floor is yours. You can take as long as you would like.
All right. Well, for my learning management system for Christmas, they gave me something called Sunshine in a Jar that I keep on my desk. And there's only 100 for the whole year, so you have to use these things wisely. So I'm going to pull one out for this audience.
Oh, wow.
So I have no idea. Well, how about you pick? Do you want orange or yellow?
Well, I am an Oregon Duck fan, and one of our colors is yellow, and we got our first game coming up this week, so let's go yellow.
Yellow it is. All right, our sunshine in a jar is, you are a magnet of all things positive.
Hey, look at that.
Not
that
bad.
Deserves a round of applause.
How about that? But no, it's been fun. I really genuinely appreciate it. Like I said, anytime I can talk trucks with anybody and just explain my passion for the industry and how much it's given to me, I'm happy to do so. And I think, like I said, the keys for me really have just been the people and the mentorship and the never stop being curious and exploring and just taking on all the challenges. But yeah, it's been good to me. And I think that, like, when you boil it all down, there are so many good careers in trucking. And like, that's what we have to drive home with the next generation, and like be thankful for what we have, for sure.
Couldn't have been better said from a fourth generation trucking industry employee. Thank you so much, Amanda Schuier, for all your time today, all the insight. If I have my way, I'll get you back on the podcast again in the future. You were fantastic. Really appreciate the time today.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, Liquid Trucking, that is going to do it for episode 94. Well, not really. I've got something extra here for you. That's going to do it for the meat of episode 94. What I'm bringing you next is sort of like a salad, if you will. But big thanks to Amanda Schuier for coming on here. Fantastic conversation with her. She will definitely be back on this podcast in the future if I have my way. Always love somebody that is seriously, what you just heard was an ode to the trucking industry, a love story about the trucking industry. It's very rare that you talk to anyone that has a family that is 4 generations into a profession. And you can tell just speaking to Amanda there that she's got trucking in her blood. She loves the industry, and it's really cool to see her out here working hard to try to just advance the industry. It's not advance it for X person or X group of people. It's just advance the industry. Hats off to her for all the great work she does here in our industry. And somebody that I think if you needed to know something about the trucking industry, and that could cover any corner of the trucking industry, you call up Amanda and buy her a cup of coffee. I think she'd give you a lot of good information, regardless of what your question was. So great interview from her again. Can't thank her enough for coming on here and sharing the time. She's a busy woman, and giving us as much time as she did is just a huge favor here for the Liquid Trucking Podcast. So thanks to her, and thanks to Jetco for lending her to us for about 40 minutes earlier. Before we go today, I had a little bit of time here to fill, and honestly, one thought I had was last week's episode was like an hour and 40 minutes or something crazy like that, so I could just give you a little bit of a shorter episode here, and everybody would probably be fine with it. It's not every day that you get a reprieve from listening to the dude that always talk. So, I thought about it, but of course, my ego got the best of me, and I thought, no, you can do better than that, Bridges. You can bring them something that would actually move the needle. And so here's what I've brought you. It is another roadside recipe. Very excited about it. And this one isn't actually really a recipe. I mean, it is when you consider it's taking ingredients and putting them together to make something else. Technically, that's a recipe. But I saw this the other day in my perusing of the interwebs, and I thought, man, there's a lot of meal preppers that listen to this show. There's people, I know you guys have talked to you before, where sometimes on your 34s or your time at home, you guys are meal prepping. You're cooking big meals. You're portioning them out, getting them into the fridge or the freezer so that you can have a quick, easy meal on the road. And I love that idea, okay? I'm big on that. Whenever I make my tailgate chili, I'm always... There was one year where I cooked chili for 40 people, And it just turns out that not everybody has as big of a chili appetite as I do. So my portion control was way off that year. And being able to put a bunch of chili in some to-go containers and throwing it in the freezer and handing it to all my friends as they went out the door for their, 3-4 hour journeys home, that was really cool. And it was really convenient. But my tailgate chili is not the most healthy thing that you can have. I do make it with elk burger, so there's less fat in it, but it's just all the other things. I mean, just get it in there. So rather than take you through another tailgate chili recipe, I wanted to turn you guys on to the idea of jarred salads. Hey, see what I did there? It's a callback. I told you I had kind of a salad for you, and it's actually a legitimate, true-to-form salad, except what you're going to do is get yourself one of those. Like, it really doesn't matter how big the mason jar is. It's up to you. If you want to use one of those big, like 32 ounces, I think that would work. And you could probably get more than one salad in here. The idea is to layer the salad in the jar. You don't like mix it up in the jar. You want to put your lettuce and then your vegetables and then your meat and, your cheese and then in a separate container or a baggie or a little Tupperware thing, or just have the bottle in your fridge. Keep the dressing out of it, right? So when you're ready to go, rather than getting every single ingredient out of the fridge and slicing and dicing and chopping and doing all this thing, you just reach in the fridge and bam, you've got your salad, like a tall, cool one, except for its greens and all the stuff that you need. Roughage, the toothbrush for your colon, like they say. That's what celery is. It's all good for you. It all helps you stay regular. And nobody is going to balk at you for getting a salad in every now and then. We know that this is kind of an unhealthy industry at large, right? We want to keep everybody healthy here, and what better way to do it than quick and easy mason jar salads? You can buy yourself a pallet of mason jars for $1.309 at Walmart or Winco or grocery outlet, any of these places that are kind of discount marts. And then, for the most part, vegetables are cheap. Don't even buy like a bag of salad. Buy a head of lettuce. If you like romaine, if you like iceberg, whatever, red leaf, buy the head of it and chop it up. You'll save so much money that way. Little bag of baby carrots, maybe a cucumber. Maybe you're an onion guy in your salad or like a fresh garlic guy. Ooh, roasted garlic in the salad? Shut up. You know what else I would do if I was out at one of those stores is I would buy a little jar of those little mozzarella balls that come in like the juice. The juice is, I think it's just water. It's just like milk water. Throw that out. But those little mozzarella balls would be great in a salad like this. Maybe some balsamic vinegar. Parmesan cheese. Look, cheddar. You could throw any cheese on a salad. Okay, pair this with, cook up some bacon bits. Or, if you want to be more healthy, bacon obviously isn't the healthiest option. You could hook up some like tuna fish in this salad, some canned tuna, maybe some turkey lunch meat if you have it. There's just so many options. A rotisserie chicken from the store that you had for dinner last night, you put it in the fridge, you shave some of that stuff off with a fork, put that on top of the salad. There's so many different ways that you could make a good mason jar salad here. So maybe you guys have heard about this before. You guys are all pro meal preppers. I get that. But any way that I can help, I'm always wanting to try to get you something that maybe you've never heard of before. And I'll be honest, this one's a little bit of a Pinterest idea, okay? If you caught me pinning this up on a vision board somewhere, I wouldn't be surprised. It's not the most trucker idea. That's why I wanted to bring it to you. Maybe it's something a little different, shakes up the norm, gets a few more veggies into your system, makes you feel better. Food is just fuel. We're just fueling up the tank, and we would rather put in some of that good stuff than some of that old dirty stuff. So there you have it for the day. Jarred salad. I feel like I had kind of a weird burp right there when I tried to say jarred salad, and I don't know if that was my body rejecting the idea before I've even tried it, or just the fact that I was chugging water before I came on this break. Doesn't matter. I'm going to try the jarred salad. I would like to know if you try it too. If you do, send me a picture. Hit me up in the email or on my phone. Of course, podcast@liquidtrucking.com is the email. You can hit me up, send me your pictures, send me any of your recipes that you want to, guys. We can definitely put a collection of recipes up on the website at any given time. I know the dude that makes the website go. His name is Tyler. He's badass, and he gets stuff turned around in a heartbeat. So if you guys start sending me recipes and pictures of food that you're making in the cab, I'm more than happy to put it up on the website. So there you have it. That's it, actually. There's the meat, the potatoes, and the salad for episode 94, all in a jar, all in your fridge. Pour it out on your face, and we've got episode 94 in the books. That does it for me. Stay safe out there, drivers. Keep the shiny side up, and until next week when we roll out episode 95, I've been your host, Marcus. This is the Liquid Trucking Podcast. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for tuning in and being the gold standard of drivers on the road. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel and tune in next week for another episode of the Liquid Trucking Podcast.
Interested in finding out more about what it takes to bring a podcast like the Liquid Trucking Podcast to your fleet? Bulldog provides tailor-made top-to-bottom podcast production services. We'll meet your terminal staff, connect with your drivers, and bring you the content you want your drivers to hear. Type bulldog.works into your browser to connect with us and learn more about what we can do for your fleet. That's bulldog.works for podcasts, tenacious recruiting, and more.